Welcome to All Things in the Name of Love. If you like this show, please like, subscribe, and share. Thanks. Welcome to another episode of All Things in the Name of Love. And today I have with me Sandra Valks. And I'm just going to read this from her website because it's such a beautiful, beautiful way to describe what she does in the world. As she says, my freedom and unapologetic self-expression has been hard won through decades of very varied lived experiences. Now that you're in your second decade of life, I'll go back to first person. I've merged my
Seventh. I'm
background.
not in my second decade.
Seventh decade of life. I've merged my background in finance and my love for all things communication and Toastmasters. As a communication specialist, my calling is to help you bloom as an effective communicator and grow confident in unpacking the intricacies of money and complexities of emotional well-being. That is huge. So thank you, thank you, thank you for being a guest on the show, and welcome.
Thank you. This is wonderful to be meeting you, and I'm really excited about wherever this takes us today.
Thank you. Me too. Me too. So I want to talk to you first and foremost, like, tell me a little bit about your background. What called you into where you are now?
I think even as a child, when I was playing games at home, I was the teacher. I was always the teacher. And if I wasn't the teacher and somebody was older, I was in school. I loved learning. And I continue today as a teacher. I started out, I did become a school teacher, and then went into the insurance world for 40 years, and I'm still just looking after my clients. But they're getting older like me. and my energy is really over into the coaching and the presentation skills, finding your voice. I've been singing on stage since I was 5. I just all those things, all that juicy life that keeps me creative and wanting to live full out. I call my life an adventure, even through the times when I was sobbing and crying, and there'd still be some laughter coming out.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers where I'm from, but I've had a lot of experience, and I can tune in so quickly with people. Just, where are you? What do you want? And let's narrow in. So eventually straight talk came out.
Yeah, that's an interesting space to be in because, like, we've got so many conditions of like how we're supposed to behave. And we were talking a little bit about this before I started recording, like expectations and like the whole education thing and the whole dance with all that. And as you said, that you're pretty much a self-made life coach. And I just love that you've allowed yourself to be what you've always meant to be and listen to that deep inner calling.
It's incredible. I always used to think I was a little bit of a chicken shit, but that was just me dumping on myself. So I had to learn all of that stuff that we do to ourselves as well, because I didn't meet the expectations of society from 70 years ago. You know, I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing according to the books. And I've always just pushed the envelope a bit, never quite realizing that was what it was. But it does take courage, and it takes determination, and it keeps saying, but I'm not happy where I'm at. I want to know more. I want to know more. I want to know more. What's wrong with me? And it turns out there wasn't a thing wrong with me or anybody else. We are just who we are at any given point, and we can change that and be who it is that we choose to be. But there is a process, and first we have to know who we want to be. You know, we don't want to be Oprah. We don't want to be the Celine Dion. We want to be Sandra Valks. We want to be Sophia Reisberg. And that is the beauty we bring to the world when we get to knowing ourselves.
And that is a process.
It is a long process and a beautiful one. I ain't finished yet. When I cross the veil, I think there'll still be that same challenge ahead of me. Keep growing spiritually, keep growing. I don't think it ends.
I don't feel like all I'm feeling is like because like I'm doing this coursework that I really never thought I was going to be taking classes again in a college. Like I feel the expansion and like it's more like because I know some of the language. It's more like I'm remembering what I've known in previous lifetimes using
Mm,
different languages, different words, but it's like that remembrance is helping activate it within me. And so it's really cool because it's like I'm learning and remembering at the same time. And I'm just open to finding out more of who I am on a deeper level because it's just so fascinating.
it
I
is. And you know where we find a lot of that stuff is not in the happy days, but in the hard days.
Mhm,
My absolute dark night of the soul, I guess is the what you would use that people would understand, was heading into my divorce. I didn't have such a word in my vocabulary because society said you make your bed, you lie in it, you know, you blah, blah, blah.
mhm,
And I did everything. As passionate as I am today, I was just as passionate then to make everything work to do. Of course, then you can overfix or overdo. But I look back and I don't think that was, I just tried so hard. And I could not get that word divorce in my head
mhm,
until I was listening one day to Melanie, I forget her last name off the top. And she was interviewing with Oprah, actually. And Oprah said, how do you know when it's done? Because that was a return to love.
mhm.
And how do you know when it's done? And she said, when the pain is greater than the gain.
Mm,
Done. And
yeah.
I finally was able to take my ring off my finger. But that whole building up, it was a nasty 3-year divorce, but it was,
Mhm,
you know, that probably should have been finished 10 years earlier.
right.
So it didn't just come out of magic, but probably there was like 3 years before and 3 years after of just this terrible space to be in.
Yeah.
And you really get to know yourself.
Mhm,
I would say that that was the turning point. And from there, then I started exploring, you know,
mhm,
backwards to childhood and
mhm.
certainly looking ahead to when I'm 105 and looking to see what's my wisdom that I would give myself today and so on. It's magical space to be in.
It really is. And I know that feeling. I actually I have been divorced and I actually ended my relationship with my former partner 4 years ago, and we were together 16 years. And I saw him last week and I caught things that I hadn't seen while I was in the relationship within myself. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm not expressing my boundaries well enough. Um, I caught myself not feeling ready to see him, so I came up with an excuse, and then I caught myself with the excuse, and I caught his behavior that made me wanna have the excuse. I was like, "Okay." So, and just, like, really, really tuning into and seeing the patterns that we used to have and me standing in my power and saying, "No, this is how I'm gonna be," and him not knowing what to do with that because I haven't in the relationship, I didn't speak that.
Hmm.
And so it was a really good reflection to see how I had grown and how I have learned to love myself more and honor myself more. Um, and at one point he said, "Did you ever love me?" I said, "Of course I did. I wouldn't have been with you for 16 years if I didn't love you. And now I love you a different way. I love you with agape."
Hmm.
And he did not know what to do with that. He's like, "Agape." I'm like, "Well, that's the universal love that we all have and are looking to find within ourselves so we can give it to everybody else." And it was a he got that he couldn't get me. You know what I mean? It's like
Hmm.
there was a point past which like we were able to have a great conversation. Then I went there and he was like, oh yeah, I'm not there.
Now, a lot of people don't understand the word agape. I
Yeah.
think it takes some digging and understanding. Grace is another word that I had to struggle with, that
Yeah.
given to you by grace. And I had a struggle with that. And the agape, I just knew I love people. And people, would say, well, what does that mean? I just love humanity. I love people. I
Mhm.
love people so much. I go to prison all the time. I've been going to prison for over 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And people will say, why would you do that? Just like your podcast is service work for you, my prison work is service work for
Mhm.
me. Because when they come out, hopefully I've had an impact and makes
Yeah.
the world a safer place, and they integrate and contribute. They have a life. I've
Yeah.
learned.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's another adventure. I almost went to, we were trying to get in prison in Honduras. That would have been quite an eye opener. I saw some videos that had been snuck out. So that would have been, I don't know how safe it would be, but
Okay.
not Honduras, Haiti. I was in Haiti in the city
Oh
center.
wow, yeah.
And the gang, I was in with the gangs, and the one gang that we were with. I mean, the one fellow just came over and looked after me. He says, Ron, mom, Ron, mom. So he immediately took charge of me and looked after me the whole time I was there. And you can't go to those places without somebody look after you. I was in
Yeah.
Uganda, the same thing. I was living in the home with my now adopted daughter. She's from Burundi and she's refugee in Uganda.
Oh wow.
So we met on Facebook, and when I got over there, I thought, no, they aren't for real and don't really come and pick me up. It's going to be an adventure. But they were there, and I lived in their home with them. That
Wow.
was so. I do love people, and
Mhm.
I love the adventure that I've traveled in life. And people just kind of think, well, I want what you've got. And John Maxwell, I just heard him recently. Are you ready to did what I did? Are you ready to put in the work? Because
Mhm.
it does take work and courage and
Yeah.
time.
Yep.
But that's where my straight talk, comes in. If you want to be babysat, if you're looking for somebody gentle and babysitting, you need to find somebody else. But if you want to get really quick results,
Mhm.
straight talk is my go-to. It's the
Mhm.
clarity and the confidence about whatever insight we're working on. But I first to say, well, I'm pretty brutal. And people would say, Sandra, stop that. You've never been brutal in your life. You say what you've got to say, and that's different.
Right.
Most people will dance around and make excuses. You see it, you nail it, and you come in. But there's always compassion and love. And
Mhm.
that I know I never attack people.
Mhm.
And that could be the harsh way. And that's not what I'm about.
No, what I'm feeling from you is like you just speak truth.
Yes.
And that can be perceived as harsh.
Hmm.
Lord knows I've seen it. Like I'll just speak a truth and people are like, ah, like no, 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 I'm not hurting you. What I just said triggered a part of you that you didn't know you had
Hmm.
that is now an opportunity for you to feel it so you don't have to carry that response, that
Burden. That's
reaction
a
anymore.
burden. Yeah. Lay it
Yeah,
down.
because it's heavy. It's
It
heavy when you
is.
carry all these like I'm fine, I'm all protected, don't worry, like, that's painful to your body, and
Awful.
our body remembers all the traumas we've experienced.
And I get thinking about this trauma, trauma informed therapies and so on. And it's a little misguiding. I think what we always have to do is who we're going to choose to work with.
Mhm,
We need to have a chance to meet them and know and see if it resonates.
mhm,
Because somebody says they're trauma informed, apparently that can be added on by taking a 1-day course. Okay, now I'm trauma informed. Like, and you and I know that trauma informed is much deeper and much greater work.
yep,
And then as I was following that thread around, like, am I trauma? I think I deal with people pretty well.
mhm,
But the thing is, We all have gone through trauma. Do you know the trauma of just being born?
Yeah.
Popping out the channel,
Hmm.
out of that warm space. Getting born is our first trauma.
Oh
And
yeah.
trauma is not necessarily, all of the terrible things that happen to us. Trauma is that surprise that happens to us. And then what do we do with that?
Hmm. Hmm.
What did we do with it? Is that understandable? And can I now be grateful for understanding it and accepting it? So moving into that whole love and forgiveness and yeah, that shift of taking that weight off our shoulders and just saying,
Hmm.
damn, I'm human after all. And so were they.
Yeah. Yeah. And allow us like the compassion, the self-compassion. Like I had something this week. I don't even know what it was. I really don't, because I'm at the point I do somatic work on myself. So like I felt the feeling come in and I was just feeling the feeling and all these thoughts came flooding through to try to tell
Mm,
me what the things were. And I was like, no, I don't need to know what they were. I just need to feel through it.
mhm.
And fortunately, my body knows at this point, because I've been doing it for long enough, that it's like, okay, she's actually going to let us feel. Okay, good, good, good. I don't have to like
Thank
listen.
goodness.
And my brain's still like, every once in a while, like, no, you can't listen, because there's that fear. And so for me, the journey has been like, how am I present? How present can I be with myself when I feel something off?
Mm.
And fortunately, I don't need anyone to trigger me anymore. I can just feel it. But I have had many experiences where people have triggered me, and the gift of that is that I've been able to like, while they're triggering me, I'm like, oh, this is a trigger. Where is it sitting in me?
Yeah.
How can I be present to myself and thank them for bringing this up into my consciousness because I can't see everything, right? We've got a lot of programs in our subconscious. I don't think I want to see them all at the same time, but like
Actually,
it's,
if we can change one area,
hmm.
we change all the areas.
Mm,
We can't change one thing that doesn't
yeah,
affect all of our life. So,
hmm,
if we're looking at our
right.
health and our wealth, our
Mhm,
relationships and our careers, they are all
right.
interwoven.
Oh yeah, they are.
So whichever one is on top that's giving us the biggest challenge at that time becomes
Hmm.
the biggest opportunity. That's where the digging starts. And
Hmm.
as those things get resolved or even moved around and shuffled, it shuffles around in all of them and the balance starts to appear. And balance is where we arrive when we get to that peace and comfort. Doesn't mean the world doesn't keep doing silly things to us. It just means we're in a little more balanced space. We don't have to react and go crazy.
Isn't that a lovely place to be?
It is.
It
It
just,
is. Which leaves me open to adventure then. And I don't know what's going
mhm,
to happen. I'm going
right.
to.
No, I agree. I completely agree. It's like, huh, interesting. Like I'm with three a Pekingese and two cats, and they all have different personalities. Very, very
Yes.
different personalities. And I noticed today that the Pekingese, I gave him this beautiful, amazing walk, and he was thrilled and amazed. We get back home and he looks at me like, now what? I'm like, oh my gosh, honey, I love you so much. You've placed way too many expectations on me because you are looking for unconditional love within yourself. And he's a rescue dog, so I have compassion for that. But I'm also,
Right.
yeah, and you're not going to be in the room when I'm doing an interview. Like you're just not.
Isn't that beautiful though? Just, um, I know with my little puppy dogs, I'd be talking to them, and after they had passed along to the other side, I was still talking to them every once in a
Mhm.
while. And I was at a channeler, and we were doing some different work, and he said, "This dog around here, a few dogs." So I said, yeah, yeah, I've got that. And I was going through all these dogs. And he said, but you need to release them. They need to let them go off into their
Mhm.
own meadows and go and play, because
Yeah.
they're just not leaving you, but you need to release them. So that's what we
Mhm.
did. And I haven't been talking to, I mean, I remember them now,
Yeah,
but I'm not holding them hostage. I'm not, and I didn't know I was. I just think
right.
they didn't know. they didn't know they could go, and I didn't know at that point that I needed to release my puppy dogs. I know
Mhm.
that with people. I know I had to let go with my son. I had to in fact, I'm waiting today for news of a friend who this may be his last day or tomorrow. We're about and it's just a very sad time and has come on very suddenly, but it has to be dealt with
Mhm.
in a loving way, because uh, we don't get a lot of choices. We're here for a short time,
Mhm.
and he's making his choices and decisions about these probably the final days.
Mhm.
And it's a challenge, and yet there's no regrets. There's no bucket list for him, no
Mhm.
bucket list for me. Like I've done what I want to do, and now it's just an adventure. And if I get to go and do that, well, that'll, I would have to build a bucket list in reverse, all the things I've done.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, well, we can't wait until, so many people,
Oh
well,
yeah.
when I get retired and my work is done, I'm
Mhm.
going to go and do. I think I've probably been traveling for the last 20, 25 years. Never thought I would, but I mean, there I was in Haiti, just because I met her in prison, and she said, "Oh, this is what I do," as she was explaining herself, another volunteer. And she said, "So we're planning another." I said, "Oh, I'd love to do that." "Really? Would you do that?" And yeah. So, next trip there I was with her, gone. Figure out how to make it happen, but just go.
Yeah. Right. That's the beauty of it. Like that was this journey with me house sitting. It was like just go.
Yeah.
And I I I mean, I'm not a spreadsheet person. I have spreadsheeted my life until January 5th because and I've just found all the spaces where I can go that are aligned that I'm supposed to be at that feel right and it's an adventure. It is I've always wanted to live on the Oregon coast. Now I am.
Wow.
So I get this opportunity to be like, "Oh my gosh, I get to live here. This is amazing. It really is gorgeous. I'm blown away by how stunning and magical. I even actually saw this is trippy. So I'm coming from a left-brained person talking about a trippy quantum physics thing. I'm walking back to my car on this magical hike that's like views of the ocean and it's amazing. About 50 feet away from my car, I see this on a fern, like this wave of energy on a fern, and I saw it twice, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's an elemental. That was a fairy or something." I've never been able to see it before, and I know it wasn't because I'm so aware of my left brain being critical all the time because it's like, former historian, so I have to quantify everything. But my heart was like, "Oh my gosh, that was a fairy." And my left brain was like, "I can't quantify that, but you know what? You're right because I saw it." I was like,
The
"Yay!"
magic is in the stuff we can't quantify,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we step forward in faith, and they say,
Mhm.
"What's faith?" I'm not particularly religious. I'm highly spiritual. So
Mhm.
when we're stepping forth in faith, that's stepping into the unknown,
Yeah. Yeah.
trusting we'll be fine,
Mhm.
and trusting that if it isn't quite fine, that we'll know how to get our feet under us again.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
there's a lot of this trust, and I was mentioning to you earlier about grace. I couldn't understand like I was just battling. What do they keep saying? Because I knew that I would kill. And once I knew I would kill, I had nobody to judge going into prison.
Mm.
Somebody was going to ever attack my baby. If that was that they were dead to protect the baby, they'd be dead.
Mhm. Mhm.
So once we understand we're capable of all things,
Yeah.
from the greatest to the lowest,
Mhm.
then I was able to just say, there, by the grace of God, go
Mhm.
I. And then whether it's grace of God or grace of universe, grace of higher power, there's something bigger than us out there.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking, this grace thing, I can't quite get a handle on it. And I was walking along the waterfront, and I was feeling really good. And I was looking at the leaves. I mean, right this time of year, they're just those brilliant reds. it's beautiful, and you're looking, and the water is so gorgeous, Lake Ontario there, and there's those Canada geese, and you're looking around and say, oh, this is beautiful. Oh my God, I didn't have to do anything to deserve it. I
Mhm.
don't have to earn my place on this earth. I don't have to, I just, it's mine, it's yours, it's everybody's, no matter what place in life is. That's
Mm,
grace. We don't need to do anything to breathe. We don't, it's,
yeah. I love how you
so I
phrase
finally got to grace, and then,
that
and
is, oh, I love how you said that. I love how you said that. That's just so, because grace is such an elusive word,
it is.
right?
I chased it for a long time.
Because it's not supposed to be a word, it's supposed to be a feeling.
Mm,
And, you know, the more I've been in my heart space, the more I realize that the head is a great tool. Head brain's a great tool.
it is.
It's a horrible master.
That's right.
It's a horrible master. And so when I feel into the mad, like I'm literally like maybe a tenth of a mile from the Nehalem Bay, and that's where I walked today with the dog, and I was like, what a magical, like this is just, I can't like I don't have words to describe the joy I
Mm,
feel about being in the presence of this magic. And he's just like, yeah, I want to go home. I'm like,
you better look out there.
okay, all right. I love you, man. I love you, man. So, because I mean, but he was enjoying he has a stroller because he only walks like a tenth of a mile and then he's done. So, so he's like in the stroller going like this. I'm so grateful. I'm smelling this air. I'm like, but you could be walking on the beach with me, buddy. And he's like, yeah, no, I don't know. I don't do beaches. And I'm like, okay.
Oh,
But I saw the gorge. I was just like in full presence, like, wow, this is magical. Look at all these the plants, the trees that are down, the water, the boats on the other side. It was absolutely stunning. And that sense, and that's why I love being outside, is because it puts me in the state of grace more than anything else can.
right, right. Well, anything that we're looking at inside, we've constructed it. So there's an extra level to go through, an extra layer to go through, I think, because where you were speaking a little earlier too about the brain being a great tool,
Mhm.
doing that work of taking all that nonsense that's in our brain, putting it
Mhm.
into order and setting it over here to be the navigator and in the passenger seat.
Mhm.
So I love when we start to realize the heart and the feelings are the driver's seat where we want to be.
Yeah.
These thoughts in our heads over here can assist when they're needed,
Right.
but we want to drive our own bus, and that driving our own bus is from the heart and the feelings.
Yeah, I completely agree with it. And it's funny because my brain is very, very intelligent. I love my brain. She's very, very beautiful and
Mhm.
amazing. She doesn't like admitting that she doesn't know everything.
I got all over that years ago when I was a when I was a school teacher. My
Yeah.
brother-in-law was just merciless. Oh, well, there, ask the teacher. She's supposed to know everything. She's supposed to know everything. She's supposed to. And it was just crazy because I was only 20.
Oh
And
man.
yes, and he was just brutal with it. So, the good thing with him poking at me so hard and me squirming because, oh, I'm supposed to know. There's other expectations. I'm supposed to
Mhm.
know. And when I finally understood, okay, I need to help the children find the answers. So
Mm.
that was a lovely shift.
Oh
But I
yeah.
got him really good. I got him really good. We were out camping, and I had saved the Pickwick tea on the little tea bags and the strings. And I had saved them up for a week when he was coming out to visit. He and his wife were coming out to visit. And when I knew that he was arriving, I hung them up on the little clothesline with a little clothes peg on each. And that would be very embarrassing for him. So he parked the car and got out. He's like, I mean, we're in the campground. This is a
Right,
tent.
right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, or whatever. And he says, "What is that? Get those down." He said. I thought, so I had grown into being able to take him on and have my own
That's
boundaries
beautiful.
within that as well. But to let go of that backpack of worry
Yeah,
about, oh, you're supposed to know. I don't know. What am I going to do? Well,
yeah,
we can release so much.
yeah. Yeah, I remember my dad actually said to me once, right after I got my PhD, he's like, so some obscure thing about Turkey. Now, I specialized about a radio station in Maine in the 1930s and 40s. I'm the only expert in the world about that radio station in the context of my dissertation, to the exclusion of everything else on the planet, right? Because like I spent 6 years studying this, right? So,
That's
so I
right.
said to my dad, I'm like, Dad, I'm an expert in something nobody cares about. Okay. So I'm aware of that. And if you know something I don't know, that's awesome. But I'm not going to know it because I only have a set capacity for knowing things. And great that you know, you can tell me you can tell me it. And he's all happy. He's like, I know more than I'm like, no, Dad, it's like, it's not a comparison. It's not a comparison. It's like, you know different things than me. And that's another point is like when you're yourself, you don't have to get in the ego of trying to prove yourself.
Actually, it's lovely once we can just look and say, let it be.
Mhm.
Some people, well, even us, when we were starting out, we weren't ready just to be told what to do or where to go or how to get there. We all have that
Mhm.
this stage of readiness when it comes along. And
Mhm.
that's our next little step, because I look back and it's been a multitude of little steps.
Mhm.
But when we look back over the decades, those little steps were what got us where we are today.
Exactly.
And it's quite incredible. Yeah.
It's
Being able to
amazing.
accept where
Yeah.
we're at.
Oh yeah, and to see the growth, like I'm even just seeing from a week ago to what is happening now with me, I am stunned that because I keep allowing,
Mm,
show me what I don't see so I can see it, because I don't want to be run by my programs.
no, no. We can set those little voices. You call them programs, I call them those silly thoughts. I mean, we've got 10,000 thoughts a day, they just so if you just worry about all of those, you're just going to be going but once we take charge and catch them and say, no, to stop, which one's the thought right now at this moment that I need to get focused and move. And so
Mhm.
you move them over into the passenger seat and get back into your body, be
Mhm.
present, and motor. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I recently re-looked at the gene keys because it's been a couple years and I love it because I love the I Ching. I love Chinese medicine. Um and so my greatest purpose in life is to be present. And
It is.
I just burst out laughing. I was like, really? That would make so much sense. Because it's been like decades of me trying to be present and failing miserably, now to the point where have moments of presence. So I'm like, making progress here.
Well,
Yeah,
that's Eckhart Tolle with the new earth and the
yeah.
power of now, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
everything being present.
Oh yeah. No, I completely understand it, and I am way more than I ever have before. And just to notice the journey that I've been on to get to where I am, I'm like, of course I pick presence because that's been the hardest thing I've tried to do my whole life is to just be present.
I
And
know.
it just cracks me up because it's like it's not hard. I was very present as a child, very present before I got the programming in, the thoughts and the, picking up stuff from the ancestors. I was incredibly present.
Hmm.
And I grew up in Connecticut in the 1970s. So like this is like can't be very present in the 70s and 80s. And so like to be able to get back to that space of knowing that when you are present, there is so much magic available to you. It's remarkable.
It really is. I mean, when we start, I know a lot of the meditation work or the guided work that I do with my clients
Mhm.
will be around just, the magnificence of our
Mhm.
hands, like the fingerprints, feeling those and bringing it down in and being present. And there's so much we can learn once we're present in our body and
Yeah.
then see, oh, where am I holding what? Okay.
Mhm.
I remember feeling like that. Doesn't matter about what the incidence was. It's
Mhm.
when did I feel that, and then you can go right back and dig and root it out without having to excavate all of the nasty stuff.
So when I was first started doing this deep inner work, my historian self would come in and try to find the origin of the thing.
Mhm.
Well, one day my 4-year-old came out and said to me, "Stop." I was like, what do you mean stop?" And she said, you've been researching since you were 18 years old, and at the time I was 50. That's 32 years of research. You're an expert researcher. You can find anything, and you're bringing that to me. Do you have any idea how traumatic that is?" And I was like, "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry." Because I hadn't thought about it. I was like, "I'm going to find the thing." And and she was traumatized. So she's hiding all the things I was trying to find because she's like, "What is like this is no, I don't want to like get away from me, crazy woman." So, so that's when I started doing more somatic work because she was like, "I do not want you to excavate me anymore." So
Children can really uncover beautiful things. Actually, Toastmasters have been at that for over 30 years,
Mm,
and we get feedback. And just when you think, how much more can I learn? But you're
yeah,
just always learning something new because I'm a new person every day.
right, right.
And when you get the offhanded comments of either how it's been an impact and touched them,
Mhm.
or when they're digging and rooting around for where's that improvement. I always say, if you're not making $10,000 for that speech, there's something in there you can, because that's the
Yeah.
hardest thing is to have the courage and the strength to look underneath somebody that you figure is speaking better than you.
Mm,
So there's that insecurity
yeah,
getting
yeah.
uncovered again. So it's always hard, but just try this, or here's something I noticed. And when
Mhm,
I'm encouraging people, people's lives are changing.
mhm.
Quite often they're uh, trying to put in some humor or they're having some enjoyment in their speech, but they forgot to tell their face. And I'll tell them that, I can hear the passion. I could feel underneath that you're having really a good time about this particular topic, but you forgot to tell your face, put a smile on. It's allowed.
Yeah,
Have yourself a chuckle. It's allowed, and you'll feel better. So they've
yeah, yeah.
really coming around in a different
Mm.
fashion.
I love that because like that's such a quote unquote fear of public speaking. And I remember the first time I gave a public speech. Now I'm okay now. But back in the day it was like 2004, and I had to give a talk about an art I don't remember. It was like an article I wrote to my department.
Okay.
This- and I'm also like in the anthropology department using oral histories for part of my dissertation. So like I'm not really an historian because I'm kind of like blending it, and I mean they're very dyed in the wool, you will do this, and I'm not that. So I have recordings of some of the excerpts that I was using for my dissertation because you can hear the passion, and there's an argument that like oral histories aren't valid history because it's memory based. I'm like, well, most history is actually written by the winners, so like none of it's accurate, so whatever. Um, so I'm standing at the podium and I'm talking, and like the head of the Main State Museum is there, and I wanted to work there when I graduated. And so like I'm like literally like shaking while I'm trying to read my paper because like all of the professors are there, all the students are there, people from out of town are there, like listening to me give this talk, and I'm just like, don't pee, don't throw up, just read. Try to make eye contact with them because most of them are historians and they don't know how to make eye contact. So try to make eye contact. Draw upon your ability to like breathe through it. And and I was able to finish it, but, like, I was just so scared because I had, I felt the expectations. And it's such a gift when we can allow ourselves to work past those expectations of others on us to allow ourselves to actually be.
Mhm. And when you're learning how to speak, the other thing is learning how to listen. Because
Mm,
once we learn how to listen, we'll know better how to speak.
yep.
And once we learn how to speak, we'll know better how to listen. It's a full loop.
Mhm.
It's a full loop. It's very deep listening. That's what you and I are doing right now because
Yeah.
none of this is scripted.
Right.
Right. So if we don't listen to each other, we can't carry on
Mhm.
the conversation. And speaking is strictly a conversation with the audience. There's only one voice coming out one direction, perhaps, but you'll know when the audience is connecting with you.
Mhm.
And it is truly a conversation, just like a book. I mean, you read a
Yeah.
book, and because it's in the book, I used to believe it. It took me a few decades to recognize, look at all my books, because I love my books. But one day I had that flash of insight that said, oh, my books are my conversations.
Mm. Yeah.
Ah, what a
Yeah.
shift when you don't
Yeah.
have to feel stupid because you got to keep reading more because you got to learn from all these
Mhm.
people that wrote a book. When really it was expanding my perspectives.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it was a conversation. It's just that
Yeah.
one conversation is in the book and me thinking, I don't know about that, and questioning it and having discussion around it with others.
Mhm.
Oh, that's what public speaking is. It's speaking
Yeah.
with the audience.
So, I remember when right before I graduated, I said to the history department, I'm like, it would be really good if we all just took an acting class or an improv class. They almost kicked me out. I'm like, but those 101 lectures where the kids are just like glazed over and they're like probably
Mhm.
looking at their phones or whatever. Well, if you engage with them,
They'll be with you.
right. And it's like it's not that hard to figure that out because like you're all kind of like quiet personalities because you're historians. I get it. I'm not normal for an historian. Not a normal historian, I know that. But I mean, I'm very introverted, actually, but I'm also recognizing that I'm social. So it's and recognizing when I have a conversation, it's gonna suck if I don't engage.
Right.
And
Surprisingly enough, I consider myself an introvert, even though I've been on stage but when you go in, you still have to find that place where you're going to start the conversation. And we
Mhm.
wait for others, but they're just as introverted as we are. So
Yeah.
somewhere along the way, you just have to jump in and start the conversation.
And I actually, now that I'm thinking it, I suspect more people are introverted and they don't know it.
I think so.
Yeah. Because I love, like, this is like the best thing for me. I'm left alone with animals.
Mhm.
I mean, really, like,
But you talk
okay,
to the animals, Mrs. Doolittle.
I do, but like they they also recognize like where my boundaries are. So it's like it's beautiful. It's like we'll hang out together, we don't hang out together. I see their levels of consciousness. It's all beautiful. And if they let me work with them, I do. If they don't, that's fine too. But it's like I have like they also have to ask permission for me to listen to them. So it's a two-way thing. It's like I'm not always available to hear them because it's not like I don't want to be. It's like when you channel, do you really want to hear the spirits all the time? No, you don't. You really don't. You want to it's just like with any conversation, if you don't want to talk to somebody, you don't have to.
That's right. And that goes right full circle right back to parenting.
Mhm.
Tough love, having boundaries.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter what we do in this life, even what stage. We can look ahead, backwards at what we've been. We can look and judge others, and then You know, when one finger's pointing out there to judge the other, you got three of them pointing back at yourself. So that's, oh, sheesh. No wonder that triggered me, because it's triggering something that I do in myself, and I don't like it in myself, and I can blame them.
Yep.
You know, so it doesn't matter. It all comes back and around. It's
Mhm.
so critical to open your mind to all the perspectives, and then it's easier to let it go. And
Yeah.
when we let it go, here's you and I meeting.
Mhm. I agree. It's such a beautiful dance, and that self-discovery. I had a friend a few weeks ago, a few months ago, say to me, I said, one of the greatest missions I have for myself is to fully embody remember and embody my Christ consciousness. That's just something my soul wants. She said, I couldn't do that. I could not do that. I'm like, that's not your mission. You don't have to. It's not your mission, it's mine. But she also was like, you're scaring me. I'm like, interesting. Because we are Christ consciousness, is that unconditional agape love. That's what we are innately.
Mhm.
And I'm just trying to remember it more fully every day. And she was like, yeah, no. I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. Because I'm still going to love you unconditionally. And, you can just use me as a reference point if you want to. If you don't even want me in your life anymore, that's fine. But now you know. Hey, I'm not hiding it. Um, and that level of commitment to myself is a big expansion for a lot of people.
And I never used to quite understand that.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes they'd look at me. For some people, I'm just that big ball of light. Oh my God, look what you do. And yeah, that's beautiful. And for others, it shuts them down and gets them scared,
Yeah.
because um,
You were that big ball of light.
I suppose. But I've learned to not go and hide it anymore.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
cover ourselves up, the basket
Mhm.
over our head so that we dim our light. That'd be Marianne Williamson. We don't go around dimming our light so others are not uncomfortable. We
Right.
have to let our light shine, and then that gives them permission. And I really do believe, that some points we do scare people that are newbies if they've never gone there. I mean, I was there at one time. I remember my mom going for tea leaf readings or something. Oh, that's not allowed, because I was in the Sunday school, and then I thought, oh, God's going to get me, Jesus loves it. There's all this stuff.
Yep.
And when we start to peel through it and just a little bit, really? Oh, and
Mhm.
it's just little bit by little bit. So I always think it's really part of, for me, letting go wherever people are,
Mhm.
because I've been there. I
Yep.
didn't know what I didn't know. And
Right.
here I am today, and I still don't know what I don't know. And when
Yep.
I cross the veil, it'll still be, I don't know what I don't know.
Mhm.
So that
Mhm.
you just pull it along in life. Just keep your head up, your eyes open, and your in amazement on high step.
Mhm. Ah, what an amazing, colorful, delightful conversation we've had, my dear. I am so grateful for this connection, and I'm noticing the time. And I
Mm.
do want to ask you that last question, which is how do people find you?
Well, I hope people want to find me. Uh, Googling me is the real simple way. Facebook and LinkedIn, just go for Sandra Valks. You'll see me there. I do have a website, which is sandravalks.ca. I like to keep everything simple. And certainly, come on, have a look, and send me a message, and we'll connect. I think that's the best way. But I do love helping people find their way home to themselves. It's the best place to live.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for all that you do in the world, for your light, for your beingness. I'm so grateful to know you're on the planet with me.
Thank you.